Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 17 2015 NFL predictions. Well, I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody's been having a very happy holiday season. I have had a great holiday season. I've got a lot of great gifts from Christmas. I got to see all my family and get to spend time with them, and that's always the most important thing around the holidays to always do. And the spirit of good fortune also went to my picks this week. For the second consecutive week, I am on the verge of having another 11-5 week. This week I am 10-5, and now overall for the year I have improved to 147-91. So it looks like for the regular season, if everything goes well, I can have a regular season without 100 losses, which is pretty good, in my opinion, to have less than 100 losses by the end of the year. And that equals up to about a 62% winning percentage, 61.7. So by the end of the this week, I should be able to get to that 63% that I always strive to get to. A little bit disappointing for the year. Now that the year's wrapping up, I kind of have to. I look back and say, man, I wish I could have been better. But you know what? It's like I'm always at that plateau, and I'm okay with that. So, what a crazy Week 16 in the National Football League. So many big upsets occurred, and it's just an amazing thing to see. We saw the Jets capitalize on Bill Belichick deferring in overtime to win 26-20 and put the Jets in the 6th spot because the Pittsburgh Steelers lost to my Baltimore Ravens in one of the biggest upsets of the year at the time. I know the Ravens and Steelers, when they always play, it's a competitive game. But now the Jets control their own destiny. If they beat Buffalo, next week the Jets will be in the playoffs and Pittsburgh will be out. You know, for both teams, I look at the Jets and say they played a sensational game. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for about 293 yards and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. You can't get a Fitzpatrick game better than that. It's also for the first time since 2010 that the Jets have won 5 straight games. And also Todd Bowles, just like Rex Ryan in the Belichick era, beat Belichick on his first try at home. I believe. I'm not exactly sure, but what a huge victory for Todd Bowles to get them to a 10-win season. And now they control their own fate. And again, everybody wants to talk about what happened in the coin toss perspective. Bill Belichick, he's done this since the rule was changed in 2013. Bill Belichick has actually done this twice, where he's deferred the opening kick. It worked back in 2013 in that crazy game where New England came back from a 24-0 deficit to win the game 31-24 at the end. But I always never quite understand that. And you could always also say that the ref awkwardly made Slater say that because right after he flipped the coin, he said, where are you going to kick? And Slater didn't even say anything. So did he hear Belichick say that if this game goes to overtime, just like in the Super Bowl several years ago when Sean Payton told the refs, hey, we're going to onside it, so don't be surprised. But at the end of the day, now with Belichick and Slater saying that was their call, you really, Patriot fans, cannot say that, oh, it was the overtime rule that screwed us over. Well, you gave the ball away. If you had received the ball, you could have won that game. And I know Patriot fans are going to say that they were injured and depleted, and you should be, commended. But at the end of the day, you're either going to be you're locked in as either the 1 or 2 seed. And you should beat a Miami team that, even though it's unfortunate now that you have to play all your starters to get that, but you should beat a Miami team that could not score a single touchdown against the Colts defense. So think about that. And then Pittsburgh losing to Baltimore. Ryan Mallett, I was incredibly shocked. That's the Ryan Mallett that I was thinking that was going to play in Houston. I thought Ryan Mallett had that kind of talent in Houston and that kind of poise to play that way, and he could have still been the starter in Houston. But as a Raven fan, I will take the victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. First time since 2011, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been swept by the Ravens, and it's even more painful because not only did we sweep them, we swept them as a 5-10 team, and we could be the sole reason why the Steelers are out of the playoffs. which is going to be eating at their crawls until next year. But when you just looked at how the Steelers played, they just they weren't really on point the way they had been the last 6 games. Their 6-game streak of 30-plus points snapped. Ben Roethlisberger threw for a below-average pedestrian 215 yards with 2 interceptions. It could have been 3. D'Angelo Williams, he had 100 yards, but most of that yardage came in the first half. I think he only had about 20 or 30 yards through the second half, which I didn't quite understand. And it just shows that this Raven team, as much as I've, complained about it, we've showed a lot of fight and a lot of heart, and that was the big moment where it all paid off for us to get that win. Alright, so there are my quick thoughts on those 2 things, and I'll talk about all the other game stories as I go through my picks, but it's not time for my picks. This week, all the games are played on Sunday, and for the 6th consecutive year, it's all division games. So here are my picks for this week. This week, when the 6-9 New Orleans Saints go to the 8-7 Atlanta Falcons, I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons. When the 10-5 New York Jets go to the 7-8 Buffalo Bills, I'm going to take the New York Jets. When the 8-7 Washington Redskins go to the 4-11 Dallas Cowboys, I'm going to take the Washington Redskins. When the 3-12 Tennessee Titans go to the 7-8 Indianapolis Colts, I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts. When the 6-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 14-1 Carolina Panthers, I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers. When the 6-9 Detroit Lions go to the 6-9 Chicago Bears, I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. When the 9-6 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 3-11 Cleveland Browns, I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. When the 7-8 Oakland Raiders go to the 10-5 Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs. When the 12-3 New England Patriots go to the 5-10 Miami Dolphins, I'm going to take the New England Patriots. When the 6-9 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 6-9 New York Giants, I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles. When the 5-10 Baltimore Ravens go to the 12-3 or 11-4 Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. When the 5-10 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 8-7 Houston Texans, I'm going to take the Houston Texans. When the 9-6 Seattle Seahawks go to the 13-2 Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals. When the 4-11 San Diego Chargers go to the 10-5 or 11-4 Denver Broncos, I'm going to take the Denver Broncos. And then when the 7-8 St. Louis Rams go to the 4-11 San Francisco 49ers, I'm going to take the St. Louis Rams. And then finally, on the Sunday night game, when the 10-5 Minnesota Vikings go to the 10-5 Green Bay Packers, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. Alright, time for my thoughts on each game. New Orleans at Atlanta. This is the first time since the intra-division format has been made in 2010 that the Saints and Falcons are actually playing one another in the final game of the year. And it's kind of disappointing. I do want to give a lot of credit to Atlanta. They beat the Carolina Panthers for the first time all year, and they snapped their 18-game winning streak, which is tied for second or third longest in NFL history. And it was an incredible defensive effort by the Atlanta Falcons. They got Cam Newton to only 143 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. So that's the second time this year that he's had no touchdowns at all. Lowest yardage total. In Atlanta, their offense, Devontae Freeman had a solid game, and actually he is only, right now, 20 yards away from being the first Falcons running back to have 1,000 yards in a year since Michael Turner did it in 2011. And also, it was a tremendous game for Julio Jones. 9 receptions, 187 yards. Julio Jones has 127 receptions, which is third most in NFL history. So, as much as the Falcons have been rising and falling, or rise up, fall down, for the Falcons, their big stars have had tremendous offensive years, and there could be some potential. And also, the Falcons are going to try to secure their first winning season for the first time since 2012. And it's awkward to me, just for a little bit of a side tangent, how all of a sudden, a lot of these bad teams are getting hot right at the time where it doesn't matter. The Atlanta Falcons could win 3 straight to end the year. the Rams after losing 5 straight can win 4 straight. And then for the Lions, after starting 1-7, they can win 7 of their final 9. So it's one of those amazing things where you're like, why couldn't these teams have played this well in the beginning of the year where they were so bad? All these teams could have been in playoff contention if they, played this way the entire year. But I think that's incredibly interesting. But also, I'm going to take Atlanta just because I think they have some momentum. You could say it's a trap. They have Atlanta coming there, and they're just coming off of such a high to beating the Falcons after they got shut out by them 2 weeks ago. They could be a little bit, too happy and too hyper. Where the Saints, they played their final home game. They beat they had a decisive win over the Jags, 38-24. Brandon Cooks has become the 10th receiver in Saints history with 1,000 yards. The last time the Saints receiver did that, 2012. Marcus Colston and Lance Moore had 1,000 yards receiving as a pure wide receiver. Jimmy Graham did it back a couple years ago, but he's a tight end, so this is pure wide receiver. So that's what makes it a bit different. But I'm going to take the Falcons here. They have some momentum. They have a better running game, and I just still don't trust the Saints defense. After the Jags fell down 24, I think it was 21-0. At one point, they got the Jags went on to go put up 28 to 14 run, and I think Atlanta, where I think their defense just has a little more talent, and also they just have a healthier Matt Ryan, and I just don't know with how the Falcons lost to New Orleans at home. They're going to be motivated to show the Saints that even though the Saints could win this game, that they're not going to lose on their home turf. So again, this should be a fun, exciting, high aerial assault game. Could be the last game for Drew Brees. He is expected to be asked to take a pay cut since his salary cap hit is $30 million next year. And for Sean Payton, this could be his final game as well because the Saints could opt him out of his contract, and the Chargers and Colts are two teams that are very interested in him if those two jobs become open. So again, I think this game is going to be very exciting. You have two high-powered offenses with extreme talent, but I'm going to take the Falcons here just because I think the Falcons can score a few more points than the Saints can on the Falcons' defense. So that's why I'm going to take Atlanta to beat New Orleans. The Jets over the Bills. The New York Jets, like I said earlier, they are on an extreme roll. This is the best season the Jets have had since 2010, when they also went 11-5. And the Jets are trying to win their 6th straight game for the first time since 1998. In 1998, the Jets went to the AFC Championship game, so maybe that's a good omen for Jets fans. Maybe I jinxed them. Sorry, Logan Schiff. Shout out to him. Kudos to your Jets. And also kudos for picking the Jets to beat the Patriots this week. Out of the NFL YouTube Prognosticators, you and Half Moon were the only two guys that picked the Jets to win, so kudos to you. So again, but this Jets team has been playing at a very impressive level. Chris Ivory, he's only about 20 yards away. Well, I think it's 11. He's 11 yards away to only become the 7th running back in Jets history to gain 1,000 yards, and the first running back since Sean Green did it back in back-to-back years in 2011 and 2012. This Jets team, it's a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense, but they've had their struggles against the Bills. They've lost their last 3 straight against the Bills, and the last time they played them back in about week 8, week 9, they lost them 24-20. It was when the Jets offense, they couldn't cash it in for about the 3-yard line. Fitzpatrick to 2 horrible balls. I remember one was to Kellen Davis, a 4th-round tight end that had been bounced around the league. But, so this Jets team is motivated. Not only do they have the playoff perspective, but they also have the motivation to go and avenge what happened at MetLife. And to me, I think this Bills team is good for them beating the Cowboys, but the Cowboys had all their backups in. But kudos to Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor is on the verge of having the 2nd highest QB rating in a season for a Bills first-year starter since Rob Johnson. I know that's an awkward stat, and I know I might get flack for saying that because Rob Johnson only played 1 game for the Bills, and then Doug Flutie took over. But that is really impressive that Tyrod Taylor, for a first-year starting quarterback after spending 4 years on the bench, has played so well for this team. And I do believe Tyrod is a franchise-type quarterback that you can build this team around. You'll have Sammy Watkins back next year. You'll have LaShawn McCoy. If you get some better receiving weapons, Robert Woods, Goodwin, they're not really that decent. Charles Clay, you could keep him. You could let him go. He's made a decent effort, but he's had his injuries as well. But I have to give Tyrod Taylor a lot of credit. When I found that out, that was very impressive. And you could say he has had the greatest QB rating ever because Tyrod Taylor's played 14 games for a first-year starter, and Rob Johnson only played 1. But I just wanted to point that out there for a very historical perspective. I think this game can be fun and competitive. It's a divisional game. It's Week 17. It's the Jets. So Jets fans obviously know that in Week 17, they've blown a lot of Week 17 games. That meant things. So Jet fans are not putting all their hope up. But I do believe with the Jets having such a big win and having the confidence and having the motivation to beat Buffalo for revenge, I believe that will be enough to beat a Buffalo team that, even though they've shown decent flashes, they've been a lot more lackluster than what Rex Ryan, Bill the Bully up Buffalo, hyped them up to be. And I believe the Jets will win this game and clinch their first playoff appearance since the 2010 season. So good job for the Jets fans. Enjoy it. And I'll go Jets, 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 Jets. Good job. So that's why I'm going to take the Jets to beat the Buffalo Bills. The Redskins over the Cowboys. All the Washington Redskins fans are saying to the entire NFC East, you like that. And yes, the Redskins fans do. They won the NFC East on Saturday night, beating the Philadelphia Eagles 38-24. And it was really not a contest from about the beginning of the game. Sam Bradford had a great opening drive to get him 7-0, but Cousins, after a 3-and-out by Bradford, responded. And then after that point, the Redskins just imposed their will on the Eagles. And I have to give a lot of credit to Jay Gruden. He's gained a good amount. He's gained credibility by making the decision to have Kirk Cousins overtake RG3 as the starter. And I have to give him credit. He had the guts to do it, and it paid off. Kirk Cousins is actually leading the league in completion percentage at 69.5%. At this point, he is the first Redskins quarterback this late in the year to lead at completion percentage for a quarterback since Sonny Jurgensen did it in 1969. And also on Saturday, he broke Jurgensen's record for most 300-yard passing games in a single season with 7. So good job for Kirk Cousins. This is a big moment for him. A lot of people had a lot of pressure on him. There was a lot of scrutiny, including from me, because I saw Kirk Cousins play about 9 games, and I said, "Oh, this guy, he's going to be in. Jay Gruden's going to be out of here. He's not going to be effective enough." And true, the entire division has gone to shreds. And I think I just heard that the Washington Redskins are the first team in NFL history to win a division title while beating no team above 500. So, in some ways, you could say that the Redskins were the best of the worst. But hey, you know what? If you're the best of the worst, you do get a playoff appearance, and you do get a playoff home game. So kudos to Kirk Cousins, and I know all the Redskins, you like that Kirk Cousins won the NFC East. Well, I'd rather have Kirk Cousins win the NFC East than the Philadelphia Eagles, but I'll get to that later. But kudos to the Redskins for that. They're playing a Cowboy team that is now 1-10 without Romo this year. Kellen Moore, he had some good moments on yesterday playing the Bills. He made some good throws and he got a couple turnovers, but he also made a big turnover that changed the game. And it's really interesting because the Cowboys at 4-11, they're kind of like a lot of the other losing teams where, it's kind of a testament to the NFL that so many teams have had injuries, but so many teams have had chances to win games that they shouldn't have, and that could have changed their whole season around. And also, I want to give Darren McFadden a lot of credit. I don't think a lot of people know this, but he's actually 5th in the NFL in rushing. So, for as bad as, DeMarco Murray's been, and everybody said, that Dallas couldn't really run the ball well, even if they didn't have DeMarco Murray, well, Darren McFadden's 5th in the league in rushing. So, I think that offensive line has done its job well enough to say, hey, we can make a running back have a very good season, and Darren McFadden being 5th, I think proves that. But I'm going to take the Redskins here. I might be, jinxing myself, but I'll put it this way. Even if they start Colt McCoy because they can just bench everybody, because they don't really have anything to play for, they're locked in the 4 slot. But the Dallas Cowboys have been outscored in their last 22 quarters at home by a grand total of 152-65. And when I look at this game, I just feel that the Redskins have enough talent around them that I think Colt McCoy, who has not looked bad in, Jay Gruden's system. Remember, he beat the Cowboys last year in Dallas with a backup quarterback ending the game. So, they've done this before. I think Colt McCoy, with his talent around him, whoever decides to play, if he decides to play them, can have enough, for one more play, and the Redskins defense can make one more stop to give Colt this victory. But I do realize that Dez Bryant, he could be out again. This game's meaningless. So that's huge. And also I think Dez Bryant will be out again. I don't think Dez needs to play this final game. So with Kellen Moore not having Dez Bryant, Terrence Williams is going to go against a Redskins defense that's really not or he's going to go up against the Cowboys defense, which hasn't been really effective at turning the ball over or getting a lot of pressure. And I just think, again, even if Jay Gruden decides to bench all their starters, I believe the Redskins have enough talent around them that facing Kellen Moore with the lack of talent around him, that Colt McCoy can get this win and for 2 consecutive years beat the Cowboys in Dallas. So again, this is a meaningless game for all seeding perspective. I'm going to take the Redskins here just because I think they have enough talent with their backups to beat the Cowboys with all their backups. So that's why I'm going to take the Washington Redskins to beat the Dallas Cowboys. The Colts over the Titans. Zach Mettenberger's streak still has continued. He's never won an NFL game. He's dropped to 0-9, and he's thrown an interception in every start of his career. So that streak is still alive. And boy, did he look awful yesterday, that whole team. They had 2 fumble returns for touchdown. Brandon Whedon scored 3 over combined touchdowns, and they ended the longest active losing streak for him with 10 games. And the Titans almost got shut out at home. Fun little fact, the Tennessee Titans have never been shut out at home. So when that happens for the first time, that'll be a franchise first. In this game, it's one of those things where basically Indianapolis is going to have the same factor like they did against Miami. Could I see the Titans putting up a fight? They could. You got, Mettenberger, even though Mariota's on the IR, and you got Andrews, you got Delaney Walker, and you have some decent defensive pieces. I just think Indy has enough talent and enough of a mindset to say, we can beat this Titans team, even with check down Charlie Whitehurst. Hopefully Andrew Luck comes back. That'd be great. Because I think, that would solidify my chance of winning. But I even think with Charlie check down Whitehurst, because Matt Hasselbeck had an AC sprain, and he was out for the rest of the game, and I don't expect him to play, because they just can't keep expecting Matt Hasselbeck to go out there and keep getting hurt behind this weak offensive line. And now I can feel sympathy for Andrew Luck saying, my God, Ryan Grigson never gave you a decent offensive line, and I actually can't believe you haven't got hurt sooner. But I'm going to take Indianapolis here just because, again, I just think that they have enough talent around them to check down Charlie Whitehurst, can make one more play or make one less mistake than the Zach Mettenberger-led Titans will. So, and also Indianapolis has beaten Tennessee 8 straight overall times, and the last time the Titans beat Indianapolis in Indy, you have to go back to Week 17 of 2007. And that's when the Colts basically, I think, didn't play anybody because they already secured the number 1 seed in the year. So, so the Titans really haven't beaten the Colts at full strength in a very long time, and I don't expect them to, even with Charlie check down Whitehurst, just because check down Whitehurst can make one more play or make one less mistake than I see Zach Mettenberger doing. And again, Zach Mettenberger, I just continue that streak going. He'll make one mistake, like Ryan Tannehill did in the red zone against the Colts yesterday, and I think the Colts will win just by a slight margin because they have enough talent around them, and the Titans have very little talent around them to win this game. It's kind of an awkward game. Tennessee can put up a fight, but Indianapolis is fighting for something. But I'm going to take the Colts here, just a little bit more talent, and the Titans just can't find ways to win games. So that's why I'm going to take the Colts to beat the Titans. Carolina over Tampa Bay. So Carolina has ran for 100 yards in 28 straight games, which is a franchise record. However, the winning streak is over. They, lost to Atlanta in a very, common divisional game. And I think there were 3 or 4 games. Carolina losing to Atlanta, Baltimore beating Pittsburgh, St. Louis beating Seattle, and the Jets beating New England, even though you could argue that wasn't really an upset because of all the Patriots' injuries. but you could say that these division games, there were 4 big divisional upsets that nobody really expected. But when I look at this game, now Carolina, in some ways, you could argue that this was a good thing for the Panthers to happen. Because whenever you're on an undefeated streak in any sport, eventually, I know athletes will say, oh, we're not really worried about it, we're not really talking about it. You know in the back of their minds they are talking about it. Because you know it's like, wow, we have a chance to do this, a chance to be this team that's never done anything before. But now, with it being over, just kind of like with the Golden State Warriors did when they lost to Milwaukee, and by the way, they haven't lost since they lost to Milwaukee, they can just relax now and just say, you know what, we're just playing football now. We have no more pressure of that, and we can just move on. Again, I do think that it definitely hurt Cam Newton's MVP chances, because now I think a lot of people are saying, especially with Brady losing, that Carson Palmer could be in the driver's seat with the Arizona Cardinals. He's won 9 straight games. He has the highest QBR. His team has won 6 games by 20 or more points, most in the league, and they're just coming off a thumping of the Green Bay Packers, 38-8. So again, he's the hot quarterback right now with the most momentum, and I think if he can beat Seattle, he's going to present himself a very strong case. And you could argue the Rams' loss is going to be big in deciding it, and the Steelers' loss because he lost to Vic and Jones. But I do believe that Newton's MVP lock is no longer there, and I think now it is a 2-horse race between him and Palmer. I would put Brady in there, and you always could put Tom Brady in there, but when you lose 3 games, I'm sorry, that's the most. It's kind of like college football. You can't lose more than 2 games, and you can't lose more than 1 game in college football. You can't lose more than 3 games. You can't lose more than 2 games to be in the MVP consideration for the NFL. But to get back to the game, I'm going to take Carolina here because they're going to be motivated. Hopefully Jonathan Stewart can come back and play. I think he can. I hope he does. Even though now Tampa, they just kind of have this awkward perspective of Tampa's now lost 3 straight after winning of their previous 4, and the way they lost to the Bears was just incredibly pathetic. They just had too many big fumbles. Winston threw a horrible red zone interception, which he should have never thrown. And then they had the fumble right after a kickoff. That was huge. Winston did get a Hail Mary, but at that point there was only 1 second left, so that really didn't matter. But I'm going to take Carolina here. They are the better team. When they played when they played Tampa in Tampa, they got blown out by the Panthers. I could see the same thing happening this time because they're motivated to just play football now. They could be rough. They could be tough. And I just think that Cam, he's going to have a bounce-back game. And Carolina's also still won 9 straight at home. So Carolina's, on a decent roll themselves of winning home games. So I'm just going to have the confidence to say that Carolina, with all their talent, with no more pressure on them, should be able to beat Tampa in a game that Tampa can put up a fight, but Tampa, as they've shown, they still have a decent amount of growing to do to become a contender. Even though they have not had Vincent Jackson the last 2 games. Fair enough if you do want to say that. So that's why I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Detroit over Chicago. Man, again, like I said earlier in the video, Detroit, after starting 1-7, have won 5 of their last 7 games. And over this stretch, Detroit's given up less than 20 points per game. And also, Detroit put up 30 points in back-to-back games for the first time since weeks 13 and 14 of last year. So this Detroit team, as bad as it started, and as much turnaround that's still going to happen because of Martha Ford hiring a new general manager and hiring a new, owner and possibly, hiring a new president, they're going to have a lot of changeover. But I do believe with Jim Caldwell, if he can win 6 of his final 8 games to go to 7-9, that is an incredible turnaround to say you deserve to have a 3rd year. Again, Jim can't have another losing season, but I do believe that he's done enough with this team, with this defense playing this well over this stretch, with them winning 6 games out of their final 8. That's good enough for me to say, Jim, you deserve to stay here as the head coach and get 1 more year. If he has another losing season, he will be gone. But I look at this game, and last time, back in week 5, or back in week 5 or 6 when these 2 teams played, this was a shootout. And it ended up being a 34-31 win in overtime, or a 34-31 win after all the craziness of just going back and forth. And I'm just going to take the Lions here just because of health. Because I did not realize this, but Chicago, with their triple threat of Forte, Jeffrey, and Cutler, they have had them 7 games. They have had their triple threat 7 games. One of them has been missing in 8 of those games. So think about that. Chicago has a triple threat of Forte, Jeffrey, and Cutler this year. Cutler's pretty much played every game. No. He's played 14 of the 16 games. He missed, 15 of the 16 games. The only game he missed was Seattle, which was when they got shut out. But Chicago, yeah, their triple threat of Forte, Jeffrey, and Cutler have all missed at least 8 games. They've only been together, all 3 of them, 7. So it's kind of an incredible, impressive thing that the Bears at 6-9 have been as competitive as they've been in games, and they've won 6 games with all the backups that they've had to work with. Cameron Meredith, Jeremy Langford, Marquise Wilson, Martellus Bennett went on the IR. All these awkward. Zach Miller's had a decent year in Chicago. So I'll give Chicago their credit, but I'm going to take the Lions here just because, Detroit, they've had, a decent amount of momentum. They have a high-powered offense, and I think, again, Detroit's defense will clamp down and hold Chicago to that under 20-point level. And I think with Stafford and Calvin Johnson, and this possibly being Calvin Johnson's final game as a Detroit Lion, he will have a monster show like he's always done against the Bears, and they will get this win for him to possibly send him out in his final game. I think that motivation will be enough to lift this Lions team over this Bears team that's been equally as competitive and as impressive. Again, would I be surprised in this game? No, this is a meaningless game. This is the last game of the year. Both teams are just playing, to play. I think both teams are going to win. I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago wins. But I'm going to take Detroit here, more fully healthy. Their defense has been pretty much more locked down, and also Jeffrey missed again. And I think if he's not in this game, they will lose more because of that. But I just think, again, Detroit's healthier, and I think with the possible final game of Calvin Johnson being played, I think they will be motivated to give him a proper send-off. So that's why I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to beat the Chicago Bears. Pittsburgh over Cleveland. Man, what can I say? Back to what I said earlier. What can I say about the Steelers and Ravens game? That was not the result I expected at all. The Ravens defense, after the Pittsburgh offense, again, it scored 30-plus points in 6 straight games. We only held them to 17. The Pittsburgh offense that, Ben had been throwing buku touchdowns. He didn't even throw a touchdown. He threw 2 picks. Ryan Mallett put up 270 yards, a touchdown, and no picks. And he was making Chris Matthews, Kamar Aiken, Chris Givens, and Jeremy Butler look like star receivers. I know the Pittsburgh secondary is not great, but when Ryan Mallett looks as sharp as he does, that's a problem. And, so now, here comes an angry Steeler team that realizes what just happened, playing a team that they have notoriously owned for years and years and years. Pittsburgh, in the last 24 games against Cleveland, has won 22 out of 24 times. Think about that. That's 11 out of 12. That's about, about 88% of the time. Let me see real quick. 11 out of 12. Yeah, 91.7% of the time the Steelers have beaten the Browns in the last 12 years. Cleveland's 2 wins, though, are at home, so they are at home. So that might give them a little bit of an upset. And also Johnny Manziel. He put up his best stat line against the Steelers in the game he started earlier in the year. He went 33 of 45 for 372 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. So, Johnny put up a good show. And I think, again, they got nothing to lose. Cleveland doesn't have to. So they'll put up all the stops that they have to. But knowing how angry Pittsburgh is, and knowing how, Cleveland, with all the lack of talent, that's not their faults, they're not going to have, I just don't see Pittsburgh losing back-to-back divisional games. I actually can't remember the last time that happened. Maybe that was a good stat I should have found. But I'm going to take Pittsburgh here. They're angry. They have too much of a high-powered offense to go against this Cleveland team. And they know that they have to win this game, and they'll be much more motivated to play a Cleveland team because they now know that any game is not a gimme game. Again, I don't think it's really going to be competitive just because I can't see Cleveland's offense being able to score enough or match up against this Pittsburgh team. And if you want my 3 locks of the week, I'm going to take Pittsburgh over Cleveland as a lock. I'm going to take Arizona over Seattle as a lock, and I'll take the Rams over the Niners as my other lock. So that's why I'm going to take the Steelers to beat the Browns. The Chiefs over the Raiders. Kudos to Andy Reid and this Chiefs team. 9 straight wins, tied with the Arizona Cardinals for now the longest active winning streak in the NFL. They had a very rough and tough physical game at home again against this Cleveland team, against Cleveland yesterday, who put up a tremendous amount of fight. And I gave Mike Penn a lot of credit for that game for being as competitive as they were. But unfortunately, when Manziel completed that 4th down conversion, they weren't. The guy's receiver's feet was not out of bounds, so the clock ran out before they ran another play. And actually, Andy Reid has never lost to the Raiders at home. I know that's kind of an awkward stat, but yeah, he's 2-0 against the Raiders at home as the Chiefs head coach. And I just think, again, where Kansas City and Oakland, they put up a competitive fight, and that game was pretty competitive, but Derek Carr threw 2 big picks, 2 that basically were almost pick sixes that cost him the game. I don't think Derek will make those kind of mistakes again, but I just don't think with the Chiefs fan base motivated at home, knowing the fact that they have a chance, depending on what happens tonight with Denver and Cincinnati, that they could win the AFC West. They'll have all their guys out there motivated to play, and I just think again this Chiefs team, as good as the future of the Raiders looks, and kudos, let me real quickly say, to Charles Woodson for a phenomenal career in the NFL. He is retiring after this year, and what a great way to end by having that game go the way it did against San Diego. The big fumble by Malcolm Smith let Derek Carr throw it to Michael Crabtree to win the game. So kudos to the Raiders, and kudos to Charles Woodson for having a Hall of Fame career. I commend you, sir. We will see you in Canton, and you have a great retirement. One of the best defensive players to ever play in the NFL is Charles Woodson, and good for him. But unfortunately, this is not the Oakland kind of send-off. I do believe KC will give him a nice reaction, but Kansas City, which is how they've been playing, they just have this mindset of, we are a rolling ball of pins and of knives and hammers that's coming to an Oakland team that, as good as they've been, they've shown that at times they can't beat these, they can't beat this kind of game. And the Chiefs technically have nothing to play for. If they lose, they're still being the playoffs. But I think the Chiefs, knowing the fact that they have the AFC West on the line, and knowing how much this means to the fan base to go, 10 straight after starting 1-5, that's a tremendous statement by that Chiefs team saying, we are ready for the playoffs, and we are ready for anybody that comes up against us. Whether that be New England, Cincinnati, the Jets, or anybody, they'll be ready to play. So that's going to take Kansas City to beat Oakland. New England over Miami. New England, since the overtime rule, has deferred the overtime toss twice, and now they're 1-1 because of that. But here's the thing, though. They're playing Miami. And here's the awkward thing. Actually, Miami has won the last 2 in Miami against this team. Back in 2013 and last year in 2014. Miami's won 2 straight in Miami against New England. However, this Miami team is not what those other teams were. This Miami team isn't. This Miami team this year is worse than the other 2 teams that they had played because this one has a losing record and the worst record under the Ryan Tannehill stewardship. What an awful game he had again yesterday, where his offense put up a grand total of 12 points, and he couldn't beat the combination of a 40-year-old Matt Hasselbeck and Charlie Checkdown Whitehurst. So, to me, I'm going to take New England in this game just because Miami really just has nothing around them as in forms of a solid foundation. As banged up as New England's defense is, I don't think Miami's will make that much more of an impact. Maybe they might hit Brady more, which will be the toughest thing, but I think he'll be able to make throws. Their secondary's been burned by basically everybody in the league. So with Gronk and LaFell and other decent receivers that New England has, they'll be able to make enough big plays here to say, okay, we will win this division and we will stop this little 2-game winning streak that you have in Miami for the Patriots. And also, Belichick and Brady don't really lose in Week 17. They are 11-3 all time, and 2 of those games that they lost really didn't mean anything because they clinched their playoff spot and they benched everybody. So when everybody's fully out there and starting, and when they have to do something on the line or they just want to play, they usually win those games. So again, I think this game, Miami, they could put with Tannehill. This is a division game. You throw records out the window. Maybe the Dolphins can put up a fight, but knowing New England, knowing that, okay, we have to win this game, they usually win the game. They usually win the games they have to win in order to move forward. So that's why I'm going to take New England to beat Miami. The Eagles over the Giants. Man, this is another meaningless game. Nobody really cares if the Eagles or Giants win these games. The Giants, they got eliminated by the Redskins winning the division, so last night's game against the Vikings really meant nothing, but they got obliterated by the Vikings. I think it was 49-17. Eli Manning threw 3 interceptions, one that was returned for a pick 6, and the Giants team just looked incredibly pathetic. They did not have Odell Beckham Jr., and that clearly showed because that offense really couldn't have any big explosive play except for one that Eli threw to Reuben Randall in the epitome of garbage time that really didn't pan out to anything. And the Giants now have secured their 4th straight non-playoff season, and they have secured their 3rd straight losing season. And to me, that means that Tom Coughlin has to go. There's no 4-year presidential miracle, Giant fans, that is going to occur this year. It is time for Coughlin to go because his Super Bowls are over. The Super Bowl luster is gone. And there's just been no progress by this team that has any justification in why keeping Coughlin is the right idea. To the same Chip Kelly is a little bit of a different perspective. Chip Kelly, bombed again, 38-24. And actually, I did not know this, but the Philadelphia Eagles have, I think since 2003, when the link opened up, the Eagles actually have more wins on the road than they do at home. The only other team that has more wins on the road than they do at home are the Cleveland Browns. But, Chip Kelly and his team, a lot of people are saying Sam Bradford, or as I call him, Sam Badford, improved. And I get that statistically. And I'll give Sam Bradford his statistical improvement. But what stats are, decent, and I'm a big stat guy, as you probably know, I'm spouting out a lot of stats. But let's understand this. Sam Bradford has now gone 5 years of winning less games in one whole year than his 2010 first-round Conrad, Tim Tebow. Okay, and I know that Sam is a better pure thrower than Tim, and I'm not saying, I guess I'll admit now, that Tim doesn't deserve a starting job. But knowing the fact that that man's had 62 games and has produced a record of 24, 37, and 1, and knowing that, Tim Tebow does have a winning record in the National Football League. As much the credit, you can argue that, or how much credit, that's debatable. But the fact that Tim Tebow has not been able to go on an opening day roster in over 3 years, while Sam Bradford's had 62, to just sit there and suck, is unbelievable to me. And again, I think if the Philadelphia Eagles, if they were smart, they should not re-sign him, because that to me he would be the lowest amount of success to justify a big-time contract. Now you can, if the Eagles do that, the Eagles are saying basically to every quarterback that gets drafted, you can get a $100 million contract because you don't have to have Super Bowls or playoff appearances or playoff wins or be average. You can have losing seasons and you will still be rewarded buku amount of dollars because we still believe in you as a quarterback. So that's, again, a little sorry for that little quick tangent, but that's what I believe if the Eagles do that. They are going to set the bar at the lowest point of saying that any quarterback that comes out while Bradford's out deserves a $100 million contract. Because if Sam Bradford got one, any other rookie quarterback or any other starting quarterback that comes out will deserve it. Because they all could have losing seasons, and just like Bradford, that's the point. So, sorry for that, but to go back to the game, I'm going to take the Eagles just because I don't trust the Giants' defense. It's dead last in basically every essential category. Yardage, turnovers, lack of sacks. And the Eagles' defense, they have enough talent around them. They have Maxwell. Odell, he'll be back, so he might be able to make some big plays. But also, Chip Kelly has never lost to the Giants in the Meadowlands, and they're trying to only get their third home win against the Giants since 2007. The Giants are trying to get a third home win against this Eagles team since 2007. So the Giants have not beaten the Eagles in New York very often over the last 8 or 9 years. So, again, this game should be competitive, and, I'll watch it a bit. It's a football game. I'll see who's playing. I hope Bradford starts, because if he loses again, that'd be great. But again, I'm going to take the Eagles here, even though I'm expecting him to win. I'm going to take the Eagles here, just a better defense and just a better mindset than what the Giants have. So that's why I'm going to take the Eagles to beat the Giants. The Bengals over the Ravens. Baltimore has not beaten Cincy in Cincy since 2011. And also, Baltimore's lost 4 straight overall against the Bengals. Do I feel a little bit more confident now because Ryan Mallett's now starting quarterback? Absolutely. But I just don't think with what the Bengals know, if they can win, knowing what they have in front of them with A.J. McCarron, I think A.J. McCarron has a lot more talent around him to be more effective. Even though Tyler Eifert, hopefully he gets healthy, because now he's into his second straight game of a concussion. So I'm gonna take the Bengals here just because I feel that Ryan Mallett, he's not gonna have as good a game. If he does, then I think that he's solidified himself as the backup quarterback. As a Raven fan, we can get rid of Clausen and we can get rid of Schaub, because I'd rather have Ryan Mallett, who seems like he knows the system very well, to be the backup behind Flacco. But I don't expect them to have that good of a game, and the Bengals just seem to have our number. And I just don't think, again, I also think that after such an emotional high of a victory, I think we might be in for a little bit of a letdown against this Bengal team, even though we are playing with house money because we have nothing to really play for. So, again, this game, I'm going to watch this game, and I think Ryan Mallett does make this game a lot more competitive, and it does give me a little bit more confidence against an A.J. McCarron-led Bengal team. But if A.J. McCarron can have a good game against the Niners defense and play decent against Pittsburgh, I'm pretty sure he can play decent enough to beat us with how many lack of people that we have. So that's what I'm going to take the Bengals to beat the Ravens. Houston over Jacksonville. Bill O'Brien has to be the first coach in NFL history to have back-to-back years where he had 3+ quarterbacks win one game for him. In 2014, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Mallett, and Case Keenum all won games for Bill O'Brien. And this year, Bill O'Brien has had Ryan Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, TJ Yates, and Brandon Whedon all win football games for him. That is knowing that you, first of all, do not have a franchise quarterback behind you. That's incredibly impressive that you've had 4 different starting quarterbacks win football games. Especially Brandon Whedon, who got cut by the Dallas Cowboys. And now think about it, Brandon Whedon is now leading this team, if Warrior can't play, into the playoffs. That is unbelievable, and good for Brandon Whedon, who also, like I said earlier, snapped his longest active losing streak at 10 games. And Houston, by the way, has done pretty impressive themselves. They've won 6 of their last 8 games, and they're starting out 2-5. Very good, So I give Houston credit for that. And but I'm going to take Houston here just because I hope Warrior comes back. But this Jacksonville team, after having such a decent, run of competitiveness and awkwardness, they're on the verge of going, to lose this game on a 3-game losing streak and go 5-11. So, even though the Jags have had a lot of great offensive and statistical improvements, such as Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns are the first duo to have 1,000 yards receiving both as a Jaguar since Thunder and Lightning did it for the Jags, which is Keenan McCardell and Jimmy Smith did it in 2001. Allen Robinson actually should have made the Pro Bowl. He has 75 receptions, 1,292 yards, 14 touchdowns, tied with Doug Baldwin for most reception touchdowns in the league. So, even Blake Bortles, he's thrown a franchise record for touchdowns, and he's thrown a franchise record for yards. It's amounted to 5 wins. It should have been 4 because we should have beaten them, but that's a whole different story. But this is what I'm just amazed with. I was talking to people and they said Gus Bradley deserves another year. And I'm looking at these last few performances in this year going, why? Look at all the moves he's made. The kicker has cost them 2 games. Jason Myers, they should have beaten Indy, and they could have beaten Tennessee. But the kickers cost them 2 games. And let's think about this. This is my favorite stat I found out. Gus Bradley has 12 wins in his career. Bruce Arians has won more games in 1 year than Gus Bradley has in his entire career. I know people are going to say, oh, that's being too critical. Bruce Arians has, had a lot more experience and a lot more talent around him. I get that. But it's something to say that one coach can win more games in 1 whole year than you have in 3. And my thing is, Gus Bradley, just like the Rams, 3 years you can't get a 500 season? I know that the other Jags organization, they had to overhaul and they brought in talent. But the talent that Gus Bradley's even brought in hasn't really panned out. Let's look at Toby Gerhart. Let's look at Red Bryant. Let's look at Dan Scuda. Let's look at Clemens this year, Chris Clemens. Devon House isn't bad. Again, they drafted a lot of good talent. But they also brought in Jason Myers and traded away Josh Scobie. So to me, I'm looking at the Jags and as great as an individual and offensive stats that they've made, why does he deserve to keep his job? I just don't get it. Because I'm like, if you're a head coach that's good enough to do things, you should, by your 3rd year, be able to get a 500 record. So, and again, the pressure is going to mount on him to continue to get to that 500 record. And the longer he does it, the more I'm going to be frustrated, and the more I'm going to say the Jags are the NFC version of the Rams. So, but again, I'm going to take Houston here. Houston's defense is good enough. I think the Jags will put a much better fight than the Titans did. But I think Houston's defense, or even with Whedon at quarterback, can make 1 or 2 more plays, and the Jags defense, or the Jags offense will make 1 or 2 more mistakes in order for the Houston Texans to win this game. So that's going to take the Houston Texans to beat the Jaguars. Seattle over Arizona. Seattle's lost 3 home games in a year for the first time since 2010. So this is definitely not the same Seattle team that we've seen over the last 2 years, and I think that's big. And losing to Case Keenum at home, giving the Rams their first win in St. Louis in Seattle in over a decade, that's a problem. Even though I do want to congratulate Doug Baldwin, who broke Darryl Turner's franchise record for most receiving touchdowns in a season with 14. With Carolina losing, I think now this even gives Arizona more of an incentive, because if Carolina loses this week and Arizona wins, Arizona gets home field advantage. Arizona's won 9 straight games for the first time since 1948. And like I said earlier, they have 6 wins by 20-plus points, most in the league, and they just absolutely dominated the Green Bay Packers from pillar to post. And I'm just feeling that, again, Seattle, they put up a fight against Arizona or in Seattle earlier in the year. They still lost, and they gave up 39 points. With now going into Arizona, with that Arizona team motivated to possibly get the number 1 seed, I don't expect that much different, because I don't think Seattle's offense, even with no Tyrann Mathieu, which is big, I don't think Seattle's offense can put up enough to stop the pressure from coming into Russell Wilson, who got sacked 3 or 4 times in the game. And I think Carson Palmer will be able to find his matchups against his Legion of Boom defense. So, Again, this game should be competitive, and Seattle's really just playing for confidence. Arizona is playing for something. But I'm going to take Arizona here because they are playing for something, and they're just clearly the better and more rolling team, and they are definitely showing that they are a candidate to, a lot of people, maybe including myself a little bit. I still think Carolina is a better team, but I do think that Arizona definitely has a legitimate gripe saying they are the best team in the NFL right now, and I don't think with Seattle, how up and down they've been, I don't think they'll be able to stop them. So that's going to take Arizona to beat Seattle. Denver over San Diego. San Diego is on the verge of having a 4-12 season for the first time since 2003. Chargers can tie their second worst record last 15 years with a loss to Denver. Yep, that's 4-12. And San Diego's been like Baltimore. They've had about 8 games where they've lost by 8 points or less. Most recently, last Thursday when they played the Raiders. But I'm going to take Denver here just because I think Denver's defense can hold the Charger offense enough to say, okay, Brock, if you put up 17 points or 20 points, our defense can hold. So, and I got to go quickly here because my time's running out. So that's going to take San Diego to lose to Denver. The Rams over the Niners. The Rams could sweep the Niners and Seahawks for the first time in 11 years in the same season. For the first time in 11 seasons. And the Rams can win 4 straight games for the first time since 2003. That was the last time the Rams made the playoffs and the last time they had a winning season. And Jeff Fisher, for the first time in 9 years, can get this Rams team to a non-losing season. I'm going to take the Rams here because they just have a better overall vibe. And Case Keenum's been playing good football. And just looking at the Niners, they don't really have that good of a defense anymore. And Blaine Gabbert is your quarterback at offense. That's good enough for me to say you are not going to win. And most of the time when I haven't been Blaine Gabbert, it's worked out well. So that's going to take the Rams to beat the Niners. And finally, Packers over Vikings. Aaron Rodgers, that Cardinal defense put such a whipping on him. That was the second lowest amount of points that he had started in a loss in which he fully started without getting hurt. He got pulled from the game. 8. The lowest points he had scored, week 3 of last year when he scored 7 points. In Minnesota, they secured their third 10-plus win season in the last 15 years. And they're going to try to beat the Packers in Lambeau for the first time since Week 8 of 2015. The first time since Week 8 of 2009 when Brett Favre did it in his return to Lambeau. Now I'm going to take the Vikings. I'm going to take the Packers here because I believe that when the chips are down, this Viking team really did not show that much effort in Minnesota earlier in the year, and I think the Packers have enough talent around them to say we will win this division for a 5th consecutive year and punch their spot in the 3 spot and put Minnesota at the 6 spot. Again, it should be a very competitive game. I'm excited they flexed this game out. It's going to be a lot more competitive than the Vikings playing the Giants. That's it. So those are all my thoughts and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. Shout out to guys like Billy B, Gio Knows, King Poetic, Half Moon, Logan Schiff. Kudos to your Jets, by the way. Mason Cole, Sean Ryan, Andrew Warren, Edwin Lerner, and Philadelphia, and all those other great NFL YouTube prognosticators. Please check them out. They are great at what they do, just like I am. And that's it. So, everybody, please enjoy the holidays and have a great new year. And until next time, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. So long.